You have been lied to. Your entire life, you've believed a lie, a beautiful, romantic lie spun by Disney and Hollywood, the lie of the medieval castle. You think of princesses, brave knights, and halls warmed by candlelight, but what was the truth? The truth was a nightmare. Have you ever pressed your cheek against a solid stone wall in the middle of winter? That feeling, that is, the feeling of kissing a slab of ice buried for a century. Today, I am not showing you a fairy tale. I am dragging you right into that stone refrigerator, a war machine, badly disguised as a home. And when night falls, when the last fire dies down, and the smoke still hasn't cleared, you will ask one question. How did they survive? Don't blink. Don't you dare click away, because the single greatest survival hack is waiting in the second half of this video. First, let's destroy the lie. Castles were designed to repel people, not to repel the cold. Those meter-thick walls were not a giant blanket, they were your enemy. Stone is the single worst insulator in the universe. It acts like a battery. It sucks the cold from the air, stores it, and then radiates that cold straight into your body. 24/7. Stand near a stone wall for too long, and you will feel your body heat being siphoned away, as if an invisible vampire is quietly pickpocketing your warmth. And when a north wind screams and slams into that wall, the stone surface chills faster than you can imagine. It creates a deep, penetrating cold. Saying thick walls are warm is like saying hugging a life jacket while not wearing it keeps you warm. It's nonsense. That thickness was for shattering trebuchet stones. It was not there to coddle you. You think fewer windows means less draft? Sorry, but you are wrong again. Those were not windows. They were arrow slits. Narrow, deep, and angled, designed for one purpose: shooting arrows, killing people. These narrow slits let in minimal light, but invited maximum drafts. They were wind knives stabbing through every hallway. What about glass? In the early Middle Ages, glass was a luxury, an extreme luxury. It was more expensive than gold. It wasn't until the 13th and 14th centuries that it became more common, and in the places without glass, they stretched animal hide, parchment, or oiled linen. When the wind rose, all of those were just flimsy cold filters. Some lords were so rich that when they moved to another castle, they had their soldiers dismantle the glass windows and take them along. Yes, it was precious cargo. But that cargo could not turn a frozen prison into spring. And when you step inside, the brutal military logic continues to crush the need for warmth. The spiral staircase. It looks beautiful, but it is a thermal nightmare. Narrow, steep, and running along the cold outer wall. The military benefit, perfect for defense. The thermal disaster, it was a perfect wind chimney. The tiny pocket of warm air from the ground floor was immediately sucked into a convection current and shot straight to the top of the tower, as if pulled by an invisible funnel. The second you created a bit of warmth, it said goodbye and climbed to the ceiling, leaving you with numb, frozen hands. Imagine, every time a door opened, a blast of wind from the courtyard shot down the hall and swirled up the staircase like a blade. Little secret, this is why interior doors were so heavy, why curtains were so thick. They weren't just for privacy, they were to block the draft like an enemy. Now, let's step into the heart of the building, the Great Hall, the one place you think was warm. Once again, you are wrong. In the middle of the hall was an open hearth, and I want to stress the word open. A fire pit on a stone base, right on the floor. And the smoke? It went straight up. On the roof there was a hole called a lucarne, a smoke hole, sometimes with a wooden cover, to keep the rain out. When the wind was favorable, the smoke found its way out. But when the wind shifted, the entire cloud of smoke would billow downwards, clinging to faces like a curse. This is why the ceilings of great halls are always pitch black, shiny with soot and grease. The smell was baked into the stone, the wood, the tapestries. For decades, so much so that even after the fire was out, you could still taste the smoke in the air. Thermal efficiency? To be blunt, pitiful. That roaring fire heated primarily through radiation. It heated your back. It heated the chair you sat on. It heated your face. But it did almost nothing to warm the massive 10 to 15 meter high volume of air above your head. Take 3 steps back from the fire, and the side of your body facing away would become cold again, instantly, as if you'd just opened a freezer. This is why people were constantly rotating in front of the fire. One half of your body was being roasted, the other half was freezing. So why not use a chimney? They did, but too late. It wasn't until the 13th or 14th century that the wall-mounted fireplace and chimney began to spread. It was a silent revolution, but the open hearth coexisted for a long time because it was cheap, it was familiar, and it was the stage of life. Eating, debating, hearing news, telling stories, it all happened there. You want to understand power? Look for the person sitting closest to the fire. And at this point, someone will argue, "But I see vibrant tapestries in all the pictures. They look so warm." You are right, but they were warm in a way you do not expect. This is survival hack number 1. Those tapestries were not just for showing off, they were technology. They functioned as a form of primitive air gap insulation. Between the ice-cold stone wall and the thick woolen tapestry, there was always a thin pocket of air. That nearly still layer of air was the thermal barrier. It didn't magically turn winter into summer, but it was enough to raise the perceived temperature by a few degrees. Enough to stop the wall from feeling like a slab of ice. And when those heavy tapestries and curtains also covered doorways and windows, drafts were choked off at the source. One more bonus. Tapestries are sound absorbent. They killed the echo in the stone halls, reducing that cave-like feeling. Of course, tapestries were for the 1%. Poorer homes? They used thick cloth, animal hides, or woven straw mats. The principle was identical. Create a static air layer. A modern engineer would look at it and smile, pre-industrial cavity insulation. But the number one secret wasn't on the walls, it was on the people. Medieval people did not heat the castle, they heated themselves. They wore their own microclimate. Forget the flimsy shirts you see in movies. Medieval clothing was a complex layered system. Every layer had a job. The layer closest to the skin? Linen, not wool. Linen wicks away sweat, keeping your skin dry. Being cold in WET was a death sentence. Outside that linen, multiple layers of wool. Wool is a magic material. It stays warm even when it's wet. Linen wicks, wool insulates. That was the key. And the outer layer? A thick tunic or a cloak lined with fur if you were rich. Head, neck, hands, feet, the heat loss doors were meticulously covered with hoods, gloves, and woolen stockings. Leather shoes were stuffed with felt or DRY straw to keep the soles from sucking the cold from the stone floor. In other words, instead of burning wood to heat the building, they burned their own body heat and trapped it. Are your hands getting cold just watching this? Comment "cold" below, and let's see how many of us are shivering right now. And here is the next layer of defense, the portable heater. The brazier? These were metal or ceramic bowls, on legs, filled with red-hot charcoal. Low smoke, gentle heat. They were placed in the middle of a small bedroom or study. Convenient? Yes. Dangerous? Extremely. Open embers caused fires. And the worst. The silent killer. Carbon monoxide CO. Colorless, odorless. CO poisoning was terrifyingly common. They had to constantly tend the ash, add new coals, and periodically open a window for ventilation, even in a blizzard. A deadly trade-off. At night, when the cold became truly brutal, this is when the ultimate weapon was deployed. It was the bed. No, not a simple wooden frame. The bed of a high-status lord was a piece of miniature architecture, a fortress within a fortress. 4 massive posts, a full canopy frame above, and most importantly, it was draped on all 4 sides with heavy, thick curtains, usually velvet or wool lined with fur. When those curtains were pulled shut, the bed became a small room inside the larger room, a microclimate. Your own body heat was trapped inside that small space. Within minutes, the temperature inside the curtains would rise dramatically. Underneath? a thick layer of straw for insulation, topped with a feather bed. They slept under 3 wool blankets and a fur throw. Before bed, a servant would place a bed warmer, a metal pan with hot coals, and slide it between the sheets to warm them. And no, they didn't sleep alone. Co-sleeping was common. Children slept with nurses. Guests slept with hosts. It was an honor. And most importantly, it was for warmth. In that knife-sharp cold, that box of thick curtains, it was paradise. But warmth from the outside won't burn for long if you are EMPTY on the inside. The winter diet was a survival strategy. Food wasn't for pleasure, it was fuel. The menu? Stews, thick, simmering all day in a cauldron. Full of meat, especially fatty pork and mutton, beans and root vegetables. Dense, black bread, dipped straight in. Fast energy, long burn. FAT was a portable power reserve, concentrated energy for your body to burn and heat itself. Spices, lots of them. Pepper, cinnamon, cloves, nutmeg. They were considered hot. They didn't just add flavor, they created a warming sensation. Drinks? Forget cold water. Drinking ice water in a cold room was an invitation to die. They drank warm ale. They drank hot mulled wine with honey and spices. A hot breakfast was mandatory to prime the internal furnace as soon as the sun failed to warm the walls. Someone will ask, why not just move around to stay warm? Exactly. Life in a castle forced movement. Laziness meant death. Hauling firewood, splitting logs, carrying cauldrons of water, cleaning soot, pulling heavy curtains, sweeping snow, climbing towers, all of it was a portable heater. And huddling. This was a collective heater. Every human body radiates heat. Pack a few dozen people around a fire and you have a human-powered radiator. Dancing, games, storytelling. All of it kept the blood flowing. Sitting still in a castle in winter was a concept that did not exist. To make you feel it, let's follow a page boy. Before dawn, he jolts awake in a room so cold his breath forms a cloud. First task, wake the fire. Rake the ashes, find an ember. Add kindling. Smoke pours out, stinging his eyes. He runs to the stores, hauls a bundle of wood as big as he is, slipping on the damp stone. Next order. Take the brazier to the Lord's chamber. Clear the ash. Add new coals. Check the bed curtains for fire. His meal? Stale bread dipped in the boiling stew. At night, he curls up in a corner, sharing the edge of a coarse blanket, listening to the wind howl through the stones. That night, he dreams he's sitting by the fire, like a lord. He wakes up, his hands are cracked and bleeding, but the fire is red again. You see, the human element wasn't just endurance, it was a skill set. They learned the cold, how to dress to stay dry, where to sit to avoid the draft, how to pull a curtain to trap heat, when to open a door for air without killing the fire. Psychology was also armor. The cold wasn't a catastrophe, it was the season. When everyone was suffering together, empathy became fuel. And there is one final genius piece of the puzzle that most people miss: the castle's location. The ancients chose high ground not just for defense, but to steal the sun. The south-facing slope in the northern hemisphere gets more sun. They intentionally put the living quarters, the Lord's private chambers, on that side. The windows, though narrow, if well placed, could warm the stone floor and walls. Stone is slow to heat, and it is slow to cool. At night, the solar heat gathered during the day would vibrate back into the room. And the north face, the coldest, windiest side, that's where they put storage, stairs, and utility spaces. It acted as a buffer zone, pushing the living quarters away from the cold. This is passive solar heating, centuries before we invented the term. Which way does your apartment face? Give a nod to those anonymous master builders. Of course, Europe was not a monolith. The South was warmer than the North. The 14th century was different from the 11th. Some regions later mastered the Kochelofen tile stove, which was incredibly efficient. But the point is, history is local. So, the survival guide to the stone refrigerator? 1. Don't heat the air, heat the body and the small space. 2. Trap heat with layers. Layers of clothes, curtains, tapestries, and people. 3. Burn your fire in the right place at the right time. 4. Eat like you are fueling a furnace. 5. Move. 6. And build. A house that eats the sun. Sounds modern, doesn't it? That's because physics hasn't changed. We just changed the materials. Now back to the cruel, honest question. Were castles cozy? The answer is an absolute no. Coziness had an address, a schedule, and a price. It was warm at the fire's edge. It was warm behind the curtain. It was warm under the blanket. It was warm in the middle of a crowd. Beyond that, it was smoke, soot, wind, and cold stone. But in that brutal environment, humans assembled an intelligent survival system, from how to place a chair to avoid radiant cold, to how to hang a cheap cloth to create an air pocket. That wasn't mythology. That was skill. If you've listened this far and still think, there's no way I could stand it, try a little prank on yourself tonight. Turn off your heat. Use only candles. Cook a pot of soup. Wear layers. Draw the curtains. Invite some friends over to tell stories. You'll discover something strange. Within a radius of a few feet, the world is just warm enough to tell one more story. And our next story will open another secret. When the wall-mounted fireplace and the chimney finally entered the castle, life changed forever. Why did simply redirecting the smoke lead to less lung disease, brighter interiors, and a shift in power away from the Great Hall? One invention redrew the map of society, and the answer will be shocking. Make sure you subscribe and hit that bell. Did you like this romance-shattering truth? Drop a comment. I choose smoke, or I choose cold. Let's see which team is bigger. And if this video made you feel warmer, please share it with a friend who's dreaming of living in a fairy tale castle. Maybe they'll bring an extra blanket.